In a small town lives an old man who has a big scar on his face that makes him look a little scary, and no one talks to him, and no one helps him carry his things up the difficult stairs to his home. He doesn't have friends, and he's not married. One day, a new family moves into his neighborhood, into his building, and they're a nice couple, Mrs. and Mr. Clarence, Mr. and Mrs. Clarence, and their children, David and Amanda. The other neighbors welcome them, and they tell Amanda and David not to talk to Mr. Benson because he's a scary old man, and he has a big scar on his face. But Mr. and Mrs. Clarence think, and their children think, that it's a silly advice, and they always say hello to Mr. Benson in the hallway or on the street with a smile, and ask him how he's feeling today. And Mr. Benson is always happy to see them, and he gives Amanda and David delicious cupcakes to eat, and the children like him. Mr. and Mrs. Clarence help him with his grocery, and one day the other neighbors hear the strange sounds from Mr. Benson's apartment. It sounds like a delightful dinner. Sounds of plates, of cups, and silverware. So they are confused. They wonder why they are not invited. And the next day, Mrs. Clarence talked to them that they must get to know Mr. Benson because he's a really funny man. He was once a chef, a very famous chef, and he makes the most delicious desserts in the whole world, in Amanda's opinion. So the other neighbors understand that they were silly, really silly, and they when they see that Amanda and David play with Mr. Benson and laugh with him, they understand that there was nothing to be afraid of. And now, every weekend, all of them go to Mr. Benson's apartment together and share their food and their time with each other, and they're happier now than before. And Mr. Benson is happier too. He doesn't feel lonely anymore because he's now part of the community.